Welcome back to Urban Odyssey, where we chase the shadows of truth. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jordan. Now, you think you know the story of the French Revolution, right? Liberty, equality, fraternity, the people rising up against a tyrant king. But what if that whole story was a lie? What if it was a carefully crafted piece of theater? Tonight we're cracking open a century-old investigation that says the revolution wasn't a popular uprising at all. It was a meticulously planned event orchestrated by secret societies. And get this, it wasn't just history. It was a blueprint.
Right, let's just jump straight into the source material for tonight. This quote is from a really controversial book written over 100 years ago, but honestly, it feels like it could have been written yesterday. The author, Nesta Webster, she basically argued that history isn't some straight line. It's a circle, a repeating cycle. And she was convinced that the same forces that lit the fuse in 1789 are still active today. For her, the French Revolution was just Act 1 in a much, much bigger drama that's still playing out.
So here's our mission briefing for this deep dive. We're going to start with the official story, the one you learned in school. Then we're going layer by layer. We'll look at the alleged political plot, then the supposed hidden hand pulling the strings, the really chilling secret Webster claims was behind the Reign of Terror, and finally, how she says this event from over 200 years ago is still shaping our world right now. Okay, so every investigation has to start with the official story, the accepted narrative. And in this case, it's a story we all know. Oppressed people, a tyrannical king, a spontaneous uprising for freedom. It's a neat, tidy story. But according to the source we're digging into, it's also a total fabrication. Basically, a cover story designed to hide a much, much darker truth. And this slide just lays it all out. The two competing realities. On the left, you've got the heroic tale of a people's revolution. It's simple, it's inspiring. But on the right, you have the theory from our source, a conspiracy, an orchestrated event fueled by intrigue and subversion, with the secret, terrifying goal of a world revolution. Webster's entire book is basically an argument that the story on the right is the one that's real. So, if it was a conspiracy, who was behind it? Well, the first name that pops up in Webster's account is the Duke of Orleans, the king's own cousin. This guy was fabulously wealthy, incredibly ambitious, and she alleges he was the money man, funding the chaos from behind the scenes, all because he wanted to snatch the throne for himself. And Webster argues this was anything but random. She lays out a very clear timeline. Step 1, infiltrate the government. Step 2, hold secret meetings in the dead of night to plot their moves. Step 3, use the Duke's own palace as a headquarters, a spider's web to spread propaganda. And then the final step, give the signal for the insurrection to kick off. It's presented as a clear, deliberate, step-by-step plan. Yeah, and the methods they supposedly used are straight out of a modern subversion playbook. We're talking paid agitators to stir up riots, flooding the city with fake news pamphlets, spies inside the palace intercepting the Queen's mail. But the most insane claim is this: an army of up to 40,000 criminals, basically on retainer, ready to be unleashed to cause absolute mayhem in Paris. This quote, which Webster pulls from contemporary records, is, wow, it's so telling. A woman in the mob, marching on the palace, doesn't see the king as a father figure. No, our father is the Duke of Orleans. It just shows you how effective their alleged propaganda machine was. The goal wasn't just to overthrow the king, it was to completely replace him in the hearts and minds of the people. But here's where the rabbit hole gets way, way deeper. What if the Duke of Orleans, with all his money and ambition, was just a pawn, a useful idiot? What if he was just a tool being used by a much older, more powerful group with a far more radical agenda? Webster claims there's a whole other layer to this conspiracy. And that deeper layer, she says, is the Illuminati. Yep, that Illuminati. Webster argues they were a very real secret society, founded by this guy Adam Weishaupt, with one single, chilling endgame: world domination. And she presents evidence that they saw the chaos in France as their first big move on the global chessboard. And their plan, supposedly, was to just tear down everything, every pillar of society, get rid of private property, erase religion and traditional morality, destroy the family unit itself. According to this theory, they wanted to build a totally new world order from scratch, and they were more than willing to burn the old one to the ground to make it happen. So here's how the theory supposedly ties it all together. You have the Duke of Orleans and his crew. They were the public face of the revolution. They were the muscle, the ones on the ground. But the Illuminati? They were the brains. They were the ones with the real, hidden agenda. See, the Duke just wanted to wear a crown. But the Illuminati, Webster claims, wanted to destroy all crowns forever. And this is where the theory takes a really dark turn, from secret plots and pamphlets to just mass murder. We're now in the reign of terror. Now, the common view is that this was just revolutionary fervor getting out of control, spiraling into chaos. But Webster argues it was something far more sinister, the final, horrifying stage of the plan being put into action. 32,000 people. Just let that number sink in. That's not the death toll for the entire country. That's for one city, just Nantes. They were systematically drowned in rivers, lined up and shot, beheaded by the guillotine. This wasn't a revolution fighting for survival. Webster presents it as a calculated industrial-scale massacre. And right here is the darkest claim in the entire book. It alleges the terror wasn't about politics, it wasn't about getting rid of enemies, it was about depopulation. That the leaders of the revolution genuinely believed France was overpopulated, and that the only way to build their utopia was to first kill millions of their own citizens. And here's the ultimate, tragic irony of it all, isn't it? This was supposed to be a revolution for the people. But they were the ones who were slaughtered. By this point, it wasn't mainly aristocrats being sent to the guillotine. It was ordinary citizens, shopkeepers, farmers, laborers. So much for liberty. Which brings us right back to where we started, that idea of history as a cycle. Webster's core argument is that the French Revolution wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. It was the start of a world revolution, a war of ideas that she was convinced is still being fought today. So this table basically shows how the source claims the French Revolution created the two main flavors of revolutionaries we still have. On one side, you've got the guys who want the state to have total control over everything, the ideological ancestors of state socialists like Marx. And on the other, you have the guys who want to smash the state completely, the anarchists. Webster says this is the fundamental conflict that has driven every single revolution since 1789. And here's the craziest part of the whole theory. She says these two revolutionary groups have always hated each other more than they hate the system they're trying to destroy. It's like they're so busy fighting over who gets to control the future that they can never actually agree on what to build. All right, let's do a rapid-fire recap of the bombshells here. 1. The French Revolution was an orchestrated plot. 2. A political faction, the Orleanists, sparked it. 3. But they were being used by a secret society, the Illuminati, with a plan for world mastery. 4. The reign of terror wasn't chaos, it was a deliberate depopulation plan. And 5. The conflicts born in 1789 created the blueprint for every revolutionary struggle since. So that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? What was 1789 really about? Was it a genuine, noble fight for freedom? Or, as this century-old theory suggests, was it the first battle in a secret war for control of the entire world? The official story tells us one thing, but the evidence in this source, it paints a much darker and way more complex picture. And look, what we've covered here tonight is really just scratching the surface of this theory. There are so many more documents, connections, and arguments that Webster lays out in her book. For anyone who wants to go even deeper down this specific rabbit hole, all the info is out there. And we really want to hear what you think. Hit us up on X. Theories like this force us to question everything we think we know. Do you buy it, or are there better explanations for what happened? Join the debate. It's all part of the process. Because at the end of the day, whether a theory is mainstream or way out on the fringe, it's the questions it makes you ask that really matter. Remember, the truth is out there. You just have to be willing to look in the dark corners.